How do nations impose restrictions on the import and export of goods and services? What are the methods of restricting the trade or import and export of goods and services? Let's have a look. Broadly, trade restrictive measures are two kinds. First one is tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers of trade. Second one is traditional measures and new measures of trade restriction. So first we have tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. So let's first look at the tariff barriers. Tariff is a tax imposed on the import or export of goods or services. So tariff is a tax imposed by the national government or central government on the commodities or services being imported or exported. That means tariff is either import duty or export duty. So tariff is of different kinds. That could be specific duty, that could be ad valorem duty, that could be compound duty, sliding scale duty, protective tariff and revenue tariff. First one is specific duty. Specific duty is a kind of import tax imposed on the quantity of the commodity. That, for example, when we import a commodity, the tax may be imposed on the weight of the commodity or number of the commodity. For example, when we import mobile phones from China, India may impose the tax on the basis of number of mobile phones being imported a year, or a number of mobile phones being imported. So that is a kind of specific duty. Second one is ad valorem duty. Ad valorem duty is a import tax imposed on the value of the commodity. For example, when we import mobile phones from China, India may impose the tax on the value of the mobile phone. For example, when 10,000 rupees is the value of the mobile phone, 10% is the ad valorem duty. Then the commodities price, that import tax will be 1,000 rupee. That is a 10% of the 10,000 rupees. So ad valorem duty is a tax imposed on the value of the commodity. Then compound duty is a mix of both specific duty and ad valorem duty. That is a kind of tax imposed on the commodities being imported or exported, with imposing specific duty and ad valorem duty in tandem. Then sliding scale duty is a kind of tax imposed with the price varying with the varying price of the commodity. So the tax may change with price varying. That is a sliding scale duty. Then protective tariff is a tax imposed with the intention to protect the domestic industries. Then last one is revenue tariff. Revenue tariff is a kind of tax imposition on the import of the commodity with the intention to import or revenue tariff is a tax imposed on import or export of the commodity with the intention to collect as much revenue as possible. Then there are non-tariff barriers. All trade restrictive measures other than tariff are called non-tariff barriers. Tariff is a commonly and mostly used trade restrictive measure, and there are so many measures other than tariff. So all those non-tariff barriers are called in the single umbrella NTB. NTB is a non-tariff barriers. It includes quota system, export subsidy, government's favor to domestic firms, embargo, health standard, technical standard requirements, administrative restrictions, exchange control. First one is quota system. Quota system is a tax. Quota system is a kind of restriction is a kind of restrictions being imposed on the limit with which the commodities can be exported or imported. So when we import pairs of shoes from a foreign country, the central government may impose some quota system for the import of pairs of shoes. India may restrict the import of pairs of shoes by 100,000 a month. That is a kind of 100,000 a month or a year or a quarter. So this is a kind of restriction, kind of quota system. Another one is export subsidy. Export subsidy is the subsidy given by the national government or the state government for the domestic firms producing the commodities. That commodities could be the import substitutes. Another one is government's favor to domestic firms. Government may have some favor to some companies in the domestic economy. So government may provide some benefits or concessions other than subsidy. Then we have embargo. Embargo is a kind of restrictions put on import of the commodities. These are the kinds of restrictions on the consignments or shipments from the foreign country. For example, in the recent period, when Chinese consignments or ships were put on hold in the Indian ports of Visakhapatnam and Kolkata, this is a kind of embargo. That is a kind of restrictions put on the shipments. The ships may not be allowed to enter the nation. So this is a kind of restriction. Another one is health standard requirements. Government may demand some requirements, health standard requirements, that the commodities being imported need to be fulfilled. During the time of Nipah, Saudi Arabia and various other Gulf nations banned the import of vegetables and fruits from Kerala, where Nipah virus was infected for many persons in 2018 and 19 June. Another one is technical standard requirement. Government or the authority may demand some requirements on technical ground need to be fulfilled. The commodities need to be fulfilled, the technical standard requirements. Another one is administrative restrictions or administrative delay. This is possible with the bureaucracy. Bureaucrats may demand some documents for sanctioning the import license or export license. So this is the way in which the import or export of the commodities may be delayed. Another one is exchange control. This is a kind of restriction put on the conversion of the currency from one currency to another currency. International currencies are highly required for settling, for transacting the commodities and services across the international borders. So when there are some restrictions on exchange control, the import will be limited. Trade restrictive measures could be tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers. Similarly, the trade restrictive measures could also be traditional measures or modern or new protectionist measures of trade. First one is traditional measures. Traditional measures are mainly two: tariff barriers and quota system. Tariff barriers and quota system are the kind of restriction, traditional measures imposed on import or export of goods or services. So this is traditional. These are traditional measures of. Similarly, we have new protectionist measures. This is called new protectionism. New protectionism is a system in which new protectionist measures are imposed by the government. Depends on the situation. So all non-tariff barriers except quotas are called new protectionist measures. So tariff is a traditional measure, quota system is another traditional measure. So all trade restrictive measures other than tariff and quotas are called new protectionist measures, such as export subsidy, government's favor to domestic firms, health standard requirements, technical standard requirements, administrative restrictions, and exchange control. So these are the embargo is another one. So these are the new protectionist measures. So the trade restriction could be trade restrictive measures could be tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. Similarly, the trade restrictive measures all could also be traditional measures and new protectionist measures. That could also be tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers.